So in my last video, I went out and shot Fomapan 200 exclusively for a whole week to see if I would like it or not. I actually did. I thought it was quite a decent film. I'll put a link to that video at the end of this. But this time I went out and tried Fomapan 400 film. Now this is a film that I've dabbled with in the past, but not really kept great notes on it because it's not really one of my favourite films. However, it is quite an inexpensive film, especially if you're starting out in film photography. And I know that a lot of experienced shooters love shooting Fomapan films, especially the 400. I get feedback on that stuff all the time. People really like it. So I had a few rolls of it to play with. So I thought to myself last week, I'm just going to go out, shoot the Fomapan 400, develop it in Rodinal, different times, different dilutions, stand developing, and also shooting the Fomapan 400 at different speeds as well, or different ISOs. So a lot of you guys know that I've been shooting a lot of Oro film recently over the last year or so, and I've really got to enjoy using that film. I shoot it at 100. If I need to push it to 400, I'll push it to 400. I've got a nice balance with it, and it works well for my kind of photography. So why am I messing about with all this Fomapan stuff? Well, you never know what happens in the future, and I like bulk loading film, and I know that Fomapan range is relatively inexpensive, or I should say the same price as Oro if you're bulk loading as well. It's certainly near enough half the price of your ILFORDs, and you're a lot more cheaper than Kodaks as well. So that's why I'm playing around with this Fomapan. I'm just dipping my toes in the water to see if it will suit my kind of photography, and that's all I'm doing. So with this Fomapan 400, the first roll I took out, I went off, and it was a nice sunny day, and I went off into the woods and took some photographs. I didn't take no video cameras with me, just some earplugs in my ears, listening to a bit of Fleetwood Mac, and off I went taking some pictures in this mottled kind of sunlit woods. And I shot the film at 100 speed. So the massive dev chart says that if you're shooting it at 400, develop at 5.5 minutes. So shooting it at 100, in effect, I'm overexposing by 2 stops. I went for 4 minutes to see how it looked, and I was absolutely blown away by the results that I got, especially looking at the negatives and also looking at the DSLR scans that I did. I'm in the darkroom now, so I'm going to be making some prints to see how they stand up on a 2.5 grade filter on the enlarger. That'll come later on. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, that was a sunny day at 100. What if I shot it at 400 on a light overcast day, because that was all that was out there available to offer from the gods. So I went off and shot it at 400. I cut the film in half. I developed one half in Rodinal, and then I developed the other half again in Rodinal, but this time a stand development. And then the next day I went back out again, shot it on a light overcast day at 100, did the same again, split it and did 2 different developments. And on the last roll, it was another sunny day, so I went out looking for shadows, taking photographs, and this time I wanted to know what it would look like, shot at 400, but also at 5.5 minutes, and pulling the development down to 4 minutes. So let's get through it. I'll show you the DSLR scans that I've done, show you the different results that I've got in Rodinal, and you guys can see for yourself. So the negatives that I got back from the very first shoot in the woods, I shot the whole lot and developed that for 4 minutes, shooting at 100. And I was totally blown away, to be honest with you. I thought to myself, crikey, if I'm going to shoot Fomapan 400, this is the way to go on a sunny day. Shoot it at 100 and developing Rodinal for 4 minutes. That really worked well for me. But then you might think to yourself, well, what's the point in having a 400 speed film? You may as well choose a 100 speed film. But don't forget, if I'm buying 400 Fomapan 400 in bulk, sometimes I might just want to go out and shoot 100. It might be a portrait that I'm lighting or something. I might just need to just pull it a little tiny bit. So it doesn't hurt to try these things out. I wasn't so impressed with the next day at the train station. I went walking around this train station trying to find angles. It was a light overcast day and I was shooting this film at 400. I wanted to see how it would perform on a light overcast day at box speed, as the massive dev chart says, 5.5 minutes. And then I cut the film in half and dumped half of it in that tank and half of it in a stand development as well. Now, my stand development, I used 10 millilitres of Rodinal. I've always used a minimum of 10 millilitres of Rodinal, but this time I put 10 millilitres in 500 mil, so if you like, 1 part to 50 on a stand development. And they came out a little bit dense. I was a little bit disappointed with the stand development compared to the normal development that I did. So yeah, I could just see, you know, these negatives here at 5.5 minutes, as per the massive dev chart, have come out quite nice. But the stand development are a little bit more dense, especially this one here with the little guy walking off into the tunnel. But still, I've got some nice usable images. I wasn't over impressed with the shooting at 400 and developing it at 5.5 minutes. But it was a light overcast day. It was what it was. The next day I went back out and I went to our local town and I shot the film, this time at 100 speed. And 2 different developments as well. This is 4 minutes in development in Rodinal, 5 inversions every minute, and this one here is another stand development. Again, I cut the roll in half and split them 2 for the development, but this is the stand development here, and this is the 4 minutes development. You can see the 4 minutes has handled it much better than the stand. This time I used 5 millilitres of Rodinal in 500 millilitres of water, so 1 part to 100 for an hour. But you can see these ones have come out quite, obviously it was an overexposed, 2 stops overexposed, but the stand development didn't help me out whatsoever. It's kind of left the images or the negatives looking overexposed, whereas the 4 minutes managed to handle it much better, and I actually like these ones out of the whole set. One thing I did notice about the Foma 400, which I've seen before, is the extra kind of red sensitivity. If you're shooting something red, I noticed it comes out a little bit lighter, like the telephone box that I took a photograph of, and also this bike, which is red, and you can notice that it comes out quite light. So I can imagine this sort of film, if you're doing portraits and someone's got kind of, you know, reddish skin or blemishes on the skin, it just lighten the tones, I should imagine, in a portrait. I don't know, I haven't tried any serious portraits with this film, but in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. These are all the negatives here that I've done. You can see this is 4 rolls all cut in 2 different halves. So I've got 8 different strips of negatives here to play with. You might think I'm handling them rough, but I don't really care about these. They're just photographs that I'm doing tests with. I'll keep a little tiny strip and keep it to one side, and the rest of them, to be honest with you, I'll just probably put in the bin. Not really interested in them, but I'll just put a few of them in, on the side, in a sleeve, in my folder, just so I can mark down and write what I've done. Obviously I've got the video as well to show what I've done, but that's why these are all sitting here like this. So what I'm going to do now is do a print from each one straight on the enlarger 2.5 grade filter and just see how they hold up. I'm not going to be doing any dodging and burning, because this is how I do most of my work in the darkroom under the enlarger, making prints, and if I can nail it with a 2.5 grade filter without playing around with dodging, burning or any other filters trying to control the contrast, then I'm pretty happy. But I'm quite confident that the first film that I shot at 100 is going to be good. So I did some prints in the darkroom just to see how they would come out. This is ILFORD's multi-grade gloss paper, and this is from the first film that I shot in the woods at 100 at 4 minutes development. They ain't actually come out that bad at all. I feel a little tiny bit of details lost here, so maybe I could possibly pull it down to 3 minutes instead of 4 minutes, but nothing that my other filters can't handle. But I just want to see if I can nail this under a 2.5 grade normal printing process. But you know, I reckon I could probably knock another minute off that development time, something I'll have to try in the future. But it is hard conditions, you know, you've got, so you can see yourself, it's contrasty conditions. I think it's handled really well. Let's have a look at another one. That was from exactly the same film. That was my daughter there, Jess. I put her in the shade and took a photograph. That's come out really nice. You can see some nice tones there. And I do notice that the skin tones are a little bit lighter than I would have thought. So maybe it's a nice a film for portraits. This was at 100, don't forget, 4 minutes development time. And another one from the same batch as well, that's just electric pylon there. And I've metered on this area here. You can see the highlights stayed on. The skies are actually kind of like a light blue, but they've gone dark. Again, maybe just pull the development down a little bit, or just play around with some other contrast filters in a darkroom, but that wasn't the point of the exercise. So this is the Foma shot at 400. At 5.5 minutes, as per the massive dev chart. This has come out okay, a little bit, you know, losing some detail around in the darker areas, and this was a light overcast day, so I'm not sure that's working too great for these sort of scenes. And another one there of the gate, little tiny gate that I took a photograph of, and the padlock, again kind of blown out highlights and a bit dark around these areas. But and then the other half of that film I did a stand development with, and that is the best I could get from one of the stand development ones. So you can see the highlights are quite bright, it's quite a contrasty looking print, but it's still nice, it's not bad at all. And that was just a cone, a traffic cone that I saw behind a wire fence. That traffic cone is red, you can see how light the reds are on this, and again the stand development there, print from the stand development, 2.5 grade filter straight off. That's not come out too bad actually, that one. And this one here is silver telephone boxes from the town centre where I went. That was shot at 100, and that was 4 minutes, overcast day. That one's come out okay, lost detail down here again, but everything else is fine. You can see the coke can's quite light, I think you can see that there. And another street scene there, nothing wrong with that at all. That's come out just really pretty much as is. It's like I said, 100 ISO that I shot that at and developed it for 4 minutes. And this was a print from the stand development that I did at 5ml of Rodinal at 100, and I felt that these, I mean, this took 20 seconds to project on the enlarger, so you can imagine how dense those negatives were. Pretty grainy as well, I must say, they're quite grainy, these ones. And then finally I went back out on the sunny day and did 400, shot it at 400 at 5.5 minutes as per the massive dev chart. This is just a little gate and a tree and a fence in the background and a wall that I took a photograph of in sunlight. That one's come out quite nice, quite contrasty, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's not underexposed or overexposed, it looks alright. You can't really see the grain structure because it's such a busy photograph. And exactly the same strip again, that was looking up at a little tiny church. It's quite a messy print, I haven't done much with it, but I just literally wanted to see how it looked. The sunlight was hitting the church. That one's came out okay. I could have dropped maybe a second off of the enlarger with that one, but it's come out alright. And there's one more print there that I took a photograph of, a little building there with a window. You can just see inside the window. I've got all the detail going on. That was shot at 400 but developed for 4 minutes. The negatives looked quite thin, and that only took 2 seconds to project on the enlarger, so these negatives were quite thin. But other than that, all these prints seem to have come out okay. But if I look closely at all of the prints, you know, this Fomapan 400 certainly isn't free of grain. It's not a fine grain film. Certainly in Rodinal anyway. I should imagine it would be okay, a little bit better in other developers, but the grain is there, you can see it. But if it's street photography and you like a little bit and a bit of grit and a bit of grain, no problem. Just don't really fancy that stuff in my skies. So from those rolls of Foma 400 that I shot with different developing techniques, I've come in a darkroom 2.5 grade filter, just tried to nail it in one on 5x7 paper, and they've all come out okay. I can't really sit there and say, oh god, it's awful, I'd never use that film again. I thought it was alright, to be honest with you. Different scenarios, different lighting conditions and different subjects, and I think they've all come out alright. And I think it goes to show that, you know, like I said at the start, Fomapan 400 is an inexpensive film. What is it, 4.5, 5 quid, pounds that is, a roll, compared to FP4s and HP5s, I should say, not FP4, HP5, which is about 6 quid. That is one fantastic solid film. But you know, when you look at bulk loading 100 foot of the stuff, I think it's about 70 or 80 quid for HP5, whereas the Foma 400, I looked online the other day, it's nearly 50 quid. So there's quite a bit of saving if you want to bulk your own film and go out and shoot the shit out of whatever you want and enjoy yourself. So for me, it's quite interesting to see if I can get on with this Foma film, if anything does happen with Oro at some point in the future, then at least I know, okay, I can revert over to Fomapan and enjoy myself. And I think that's what these little experiments are about, just trying to get familiar with a particular film and seeing if I enjoy it or not. And the Fomapan 400, it's all right. I much prefer the 200, I must admit. I really did enjoy shooting that film. But I think if I do shoot the Fomapan 400, I might just pull that development down a little tiny bit from 5.5 minutes and see how I get on with there. But I'd certainly enjoy shooting that at 100 and developing it in Rodinal 1:25 for 4 minutes, 5 inversions every minute. I seem to get fantastic results with that combo, especially out in bright sunlight in the woods like I was shooting. I found that print was quite nice. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video of me playing around with Fomapan 400 and Rodinal. Somewhere around here there's a box which shows the 200 video, the Fomapan 200 video that I shot the other week. Click on that and have a watch of that one, because that one's just as interesting as well. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a nice weekend. I'll catch you next time.